What up, dude bros? I'm Frank. I recently went to the New York Toy Fair. This is my BuzzBee recap, sort of what I experienced at the BuzzBee booths. I'll be doing a recap like this for all the brands I saw at the Toy Fair. I'll be covering a few blasters as well as their new darts, their blasters first. First, the Blizzard. This is a spring-powered pump-action blaster that feeds from integrated cylinders. This product is a prototype, as you can tell by the paint job on the cylinder. That paint is, it looks like somebody did that in the garage, and as far as the cost-benefit, that's how they prototype stuff. No complaints there at all, but if you see that and you say, that looks a little weird, keep that in mind. It is just a prototype. I doubt the finished production model will look like that. And at the Toy Fair, I saw quite a few products like that, non-Nerf guns too, just kind of everything. It's expensive to paint stuff and injection mold it in that color instead of just kind of prototyping it and hitting it with a spray can. But this blaster looks pretty cool. I did not want to use anything that could potentially break because I'd feel like a total D-bag if I pick something up, and because I tend to push Nerf guns kind of hard when I use them. I don't really like to baby them. I believe the demonstrator shot this one a few times, or this was one of the inoperable ones. I can't recall. But being a prototype, I can't really completely judge and give a conclusion on it anyways. The theory behind the blaster is pretty solid. If you're not a magazine guy and you like the integrated systems, I am excited for the blaster, but of course I'll give a comprehensive review once I'm able to buy one. That is the Blizzard. Now onto the Tactical Storm. Now, when I picked this blaster up, I think it looks really cool, and I know that's a subjective opinion. It just looks and holds in a really cool way. It's freaking sweet. Just like a laser gun. I think it'd be cool to attach some type of like wicked chain system or drum. The ventilation holes on the barrel kind of remind me of like a light machine gun, somebody who like plants up and they have all those holes with the giant chains and all of that. Either that or it's speed holes so you can go much faster, and you gotta go fast, so that was nice to see. Very cool looking. And that barrel is a screw-on barrel that you can very quickly screw on and off for storage, or if you just don't want the super long barrel like the Snipe and the Rangemaster and those other blasters. BuzzBee's done that before, which I think is cool. But this is a magazine-fed top priming blaster we can expect the performance to be in line with other Airzone or Air Warriors products. That is the Tactical Storm. The only thing I can note that might not be obvious from the images is it does not have a tack rail on the top. Air Warriors, they're coming out with some new attachments and stuff, and they have a different rail and an adapter, which I'll get to in a moment, but this one doesn't have a rail on the top. Having a rail on the actual priming handle would be kind of annoying, but there's this little front area which I was expecting a rail there. There isn't. In case you wanted to buy that, buy the thermal scope, which is also coming up from Air Warriors, and then put it on there. Unfortunately, there's no rail. And the stock is removable, but I believe the rep said it's supposed to be adjustable in the final form, so it won't snap off completely, or it may, but it's also designed to like adjust outward to extend it. I might have misunderstood him there, so perhaps I'm incorrect there. I was a little overwhelmed at the BuzzBee, the booth, because when I walked in I saw these cool things, especially like the Rail Blaster shotgun and some of these things in the thermal optic, and I was just trying to look at everything all at the same time. It was a little overwhelming because everything looks so awesome that some of the things they were telling me I didn't retain at all, unfortunately. But that is the Tactical Storm. Now onto the Rail Blaster. Now this blaster is cool. It looks awesome, and I'm really stoked for the blaster, but this is one of those weird ones where I'm really excited for it to be present, but I'm not sure that I'll actually war with it. I'm kind of stubbornly stuck on my magazines, other than the Rival Nemesis, because that's a step above magazines almost. Being a hopper, you just dump them all in there. But the Rail Blaster features an inline dart storage system, kind of like an RSCB or a hopper clip, which are sort of DIY or homemade Nerf blaster terms, where you have a bunch of darts in a line within it, or if you know how a shotgun actually loads, those carry a bunch of shells in a tube, which is spring powered. This does not have a spring powering on the back, so you open up the back notch and you push in darts, and the darts are fed on a conveyor belt inside, just like the Rival Chaos, or not just like, but in a similar manner to the Chaos, how it runs a conveyor belt to push balls into the flywheels. The Rail Blaster uses a conveyor belt to push the darts, but it's not electronically driven, it's mechanically driven. When you pump it, you're activating the conveyor belt. Mechanically, this thing, I wanted to geek out forever, but I couldn't take it apart to look at it. Why is everybody so surprised when I'm like, wow, that's mechanically really fascinating? I want to open it. But this one did shoot a few times, and it broke, but just before I took hold of it, so I'm so glad I didn't actually break it. I officially did not break anything at the Toy Fair, so that's a win. I was totally worried about breaking some of these prototypes, because I don't like to look at stuff to figure out how it works. I like to just touch everything and move everything all at once, and it eventually works, but sometimes if it's a prototype, it'll not work and then break. But I didn't break it. It was broken almost right before it was handed to me, so win. But it did shoot a few times, and the performance was as expected, and again, it's a prototype. Performance out of the manufacturer, they can always just tweak it a little bit, like that's just spring power, it's not too tricky. And assuming the loading system and all of that works really fluidly and it doesn't jam, I'm really excited for this blaster. And I did specify that you can fire the blaster with the little back thing open. It doesn't have like a mechanical lock preventing that, so you can be chambered, ready to go, and then still loading darts in the back. And the form factor there, it looks like a sawed-off shotgun, which is really cool. The back of the grip is a little uncomfortable uncomfortable. It was almost like too linear, like a square. That might be something that's polished off in the future. The rest of it felt really great. The weighting, the balance, the ergonomics, and the usability of it was pretty cool. But the grip was a little sharp in the back, just a minor gripe, and I'm getting nitpicky here. The engineering innovation there, the conveyor belt, I was just kind of geeking out and I wanted to look into it. Super cool blaster. I'm really excited for that launch. That, along with all of these, should be released in fall of 2017 as well. Next blaster is the Zenith. Now this is a pump action, more or less because it's really small, cylinder fed blaster which with a capacity of 6 darts. This type of blaster isn't really new. We've seen this type of stuff before. The performance was acceptable. There's an interesting point here. I had a conversation in my tour guide for the products was actually the design manager of the Busby brand, which was super cool. When I asked the PR reps of the other brands, like, oh, like what type of mechanical design is doing that, or where's the battery source that's powering this electronic feature, I could stump them, and they were always very polite and they were willing to go and ask somebody else for the response. But it was really great to have the design manager right there who understands this stuff far better than I ever will, and he could explain it and answer every question, plus way more than I could ever ask. But with this blaster, they specifically designed the blaster to rotate in the barrel, and not for like the swag points like the Alien Menace Ravager, which just has such unnecessary spinning just for the lels. From the get-go, they said, no, we have to have a rotating barrel because this is the red, the accuracy line, the Precision Dart Pro, which I'll get to the darts in a moment, but that whole line is based on precision and accuracy. And the Smart AR system changes which barrel is firing, so if you're getting really precise, a dart launching from here is going to go on a different trajectory than a dart launching from here. So having the rotating cylinder lets you launch the dart from the exact same spot, which is really up close to the sight line. So when you're aiming down your sights, you're very close to the barrel and in the same spot. And it's interesting that that was actually a design element and not just a coincidence. So the dudes over at Busby are totally nerding out over accuracy, which is awesome. Zenith, kind of that weird middle ground, not a primary, not small enough to holster or carry on a side, but a functional blaster nonetheless. I'm excited for it. And the Rangemaster, or the Snipe, or whatever the hell they're calling this. Again, I kind of want to count. How many of these things have they had? It's the same mechanics, just reshelled, either repainted or they changed the molding here. It's an unscrewable barrel, the bipod, the scope, and we've seen this one before. And they're gonna sell really well, but I just have no interest in this type of blaster. Also, the Walking Dead series is getting an addition. It's a magazine-fed crossbow-looking blaster. You watch my Walking Dead overview, I wasn't really attracted to any of those blasters. A giant magazine out of a crossbow, it's a contradiction of but whatever. I also saw a few other reskins. Busby's been doing this for years. They renamed the blasters for certain distributors. They repaint everything over the course of years or whatever, so it's the same blaster effectively with new names and a slightly different appearance. Everything's a Jolt reskin, right? I don't know if it's new, but I don't think I've shot one. The Sentry, which is the red accuracy or precision line. Pretty small, the form factor's pretty cool, so, you know. And regarding the rotating barrel, the Wizard is a good example of one that runs on a Smart AR system. So, I mean, it's not like imprecise by any means or any definition of a Nerf blaster, but when you have 4 barrels that are static and it just redirects the air to push the dart out, it's launching from a slightly different position. When you're using normal darts that are just inaccurate and imprecise, it doesn't really matter. And that's what's great. They're already getting to that point where that's going to make a difference in the precision, which means, you know, in 2 years or something, we're going to be freaking snipers just all the time. Just be like, oh, freaking headshot. But it's actually going to hit them, and not just in our head. The dart's actually going to land. A brief overview of the Thermal Hunter, because this one warrants its own video, but the Thermal Hunter is a pump-action, spring-powered, magazine-fed blaster with a thermal scope. It detects heat. The little dot in the inside will change color when it's over a heat signature, and you can recalibrate it to distance and your ambient temperature, so you can use it inside and outside, and all for $25, not just for the scope, which would already be super cheap. Nerf is actually releasing a night vision 5x scope for $50 by itself. This is half that cost with, you know, the whole blaster attached to it as well. The Busby price point is crazy, and I shot the blaster. It worked really smoothly, and I was surprised because it was a prototype. The thermal detection also worked really well, so I'm just impressed with all of it. I'm not sure I'd ever need to use a thermal scope like I can usually see when my opponent's in front of me. I don't know, I'll turn out the lights and just kind of like wander around and pull the trigger, and then you hear an ow from like 30 feet out. You're like, oh man, freaking operator status. More on that in the standalone video. Now to their dart innovation, which I think is super cool, and this is what we nerded out for. I think I set like a pretty short meeting, and I ended up staying there for like 3 times longer than we had previously scheduled. But the design manager was super cool and a total nerd, and that's not a derogatory derogatory term because his analysis of ammo was just fantastic. It's like a team of people over there who are designing darts, which is super cool. So these suction cup darts, I don't know if they've had this color, but this is the standard Busby dart. Now these are cross-compatible with Nerf blasters. I've talked about that with their magazines, and you can feed these in Nerf blasters, but now they're also releasing 2 different kinds of ammo. They're keeping their suction ones in case you want to shoot windows or you want it to stick on stuff, cool. But the rep made me believe these are more performance-oriented, so these should perform better than the suction cup ones. When I have a larger stash and a larger sample size of each, I'll run more extensive tests. And he also mentioned these are still going through development, so this isn't the final version, so I don't want to share a firm conclusion on this projectile until it's the final version, because that'll just root in as a bias for you on your analysis of that ammo when you buy it. So the blue ones are the long distance darts, and the red ones are the Precision Pro darts. The advertised range of their blasters shooting the red one is 90 feet, and the blue one's 100 feet, so it's not like a dramatic change, but 10 feet, pretty cool. And I don't think he gave me any metrics on the precision change from the red to the blue, but he did mention the groupings are tighter with the red ones. The red ones have a really cool appearance. I haven't seen darts like this. They have little ridges in the side of the foam, and I believe that's to do with aerodynamic stability when you're in the air. And the head is flat, and it seems a little firm, but again, it might be something that's worked out by the final product. And they do fly pretty straight. I haven't run extensive tests, and I don't know that I will with this prototype model until I get the final ones. And then the long range darts, which have a more traditional tip. This one flexes a bit, and you can feel it when you push on it, but it doesn't have an air release hole like on the side, like a normal Elite dart. The long range one and the old suction cup ones, he mentioned are going to be reverse compatible with all Nerf blasters, but the red ones may have a hard time feeding through flywheels, and I believe that would be because of the width there. I don't know that the flywheel would grip it. I can't share a lot of the information with their testing standards, but trust me when I say they nerded out like 10 or 15 times harder than I did for my dart analysis that I recently published. Isolating each variable, and not just the dart or the tip, but it's the dart tip, the compression rate, the foam, just every element of the dart that makes it a dart. He kind of said this is the superior, this, and they just broke it all down to try to create a superior dart. When it really comes down to it, when I get a lot of viewers that say, hey Coop, what's the most accurate Nerf blaster? And generally, it's not really anything to do with the blaster, it's the ammo. But right now, the variation between one blaster and another isn't great enough to really change the overall precision of the darts. Super excited for the ammo. I don't remember the bulk cost of the red ammo, but I believe you get 100 of these for $10. I think, which is affordable, just like all the Busby products. So if these are shooting really accurately, you might not have to buy those third-party ones on Amazon, and you wouldn't have to buy AccuStrike darts because those are kind of expensive. I'll review all of them down the road when I'm able to get a production sample in my studio. And I missed a blaster, the Cougar, and not just Matt's mom. Oh, it's a little clip-fed thing. That might be a reskin. I think I've seen that one before. I'm excited for everything. I'll review everything in the future when I'm able to get copies of it. That's sort of my recap and experience at the Busby booth at the New York Toy Fair 2017. Thanks so much for watching, bros, and as always, stay tactical.